So listening to you and like kind of listening to Matthew's struggle makes me really like say, yeah, this is something that I've been struggling with since I was a young girl too. I just didn't know that that's what it was.
Because back then, like, we can honestly, that word, I don't think
that was like a word that was thrown around like that. Like,
no,
it was just like, this girl's overreacting. The word I remember what they would tell me, like, she's so bipolar, because I would be happy in a moment and like engaging and like smiling, and then something would trigger me, and then I would go into like
rage.
No, it wasn't necessarily rage. I would put myself literally in timeout.
Oh yeah, this girl. Let me tell you,
I would put myself in timeout. I would just like detach and like just walk away and remove myself from a situation. And like what would happen is, in that moment, I was like processing something. My brain was going at like 1,000, but people would obviously come out of the goodness of their heart, like, what's wrong? But what's wrong? But come on. And that would just literally like stop it, like stop, leave me alone, like I don't know what I'm feeling right now, and you keep doing this, and it's like it was building it up, and then it would be an outburst. So like I'm hearing Matthew and like things that he like struggles, like what I said, like when at Costco. So I'm like, oh, I've been struggling with anxiety for a very long time
since you were young.
And it's now that I'm like an adult that I'm like, oh, this is a panic attack. Or I had like what I had in and what I said in Thanksgiving earlier, like being mindful of like, this is actually causing something that's going to lead to this. So let me ground myself. And then I've been doing therapy too. And I've noticed that it helps me be more mindful of what triggers and how to identify the trigger, where it's taking me, and like, okay, let's address this now rather than it building up into like a big snowball and like exploding. So the reason why I also wanted to talk about this, because I don't know if you guys have caught on to like how we're wording anxiety and like, well, the way that we're talking about it. And I want to make sure you guys hear this right now.
Key point.
The key point is here. In no point have I said I have anxiety disorder. I have said, and Stephanie has stated for her son, we struggle with anxiety. And there is a very intentional reason why we say that. It's because the moment that you say, I have, you are giving it power. For sure. And you're giving it ownership. When you say I struggle, you know that that is a battle that you're facing. That it's something that comes and you are fighting it because you don't want it to become who you are. And the reason why I say this is because I have a lot of people that I talk with and I engage in conversations with that struggle with anxiety. But they come in and they're like, I have social anxiety. I have anxiety. I can't do that. Oh my gosh. Like that gives me anxiety. And like, I'm such an anxious person that no, like I can't do that. And I'm like, you already limit yourself because you claim ownership and power that anxiety has over you. So you don't do the social events or you don't engage socially because you have social anxiety. I struggle with a generalized anxiety disorder. And the anxiety that I kind of struggle with, it can go into like different realms. Like it can cause me to go into panic. It can cause me to have
to rage.
It can cause me to go to panic. It could cause me to go to like socially where I retreat and like I don't want to talk to anybody and I have like a social aspect. So but I struggle with that. Yet I don't want to claim ownership because I don't want that to become my identity. And so our struggle with anxiety is meant to be a thorn in our flesh. It's not supposed to be our identity. The Apostle Paul kind of talks about the thorn in our flesh, right?
Yes.
And he goes in sends to a letter to the church of Corinth, and he goes, even if I should choose to boast, I would not be a fool, because I would be speaking the truth. But I refrain so no one will think more of me than is warranted by what I do or say, or because of these surpassing great revelations. Therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in my weakness, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. 2 Corinthians 12, verses 6 to 10. So we don't know, like, theologians don't really know what his thorn in the flesh was. And I thank God that he didn't specify, like Paul didn't specify what his thorn in his flesh. He just let you know, I struggle with something.
Exactly.
There's something that digs into me every day. It's something that I don't want to be in my system or like a part of me, but it is. But I won't, like, it's not going to define me, because when I feel that weakness, I can come to God and I can trust in him.
Wow.
And he makes me strong.
Yep. That's such a key point, what Priscilla's saying right there, because a lot of us have taken ownership.
Yeah.
You know, we take ownership. You know, right now the topic is anxiety, and this is what we're focusing on. But a lot of us have that thorn. I have a thorn too.
Yeah.
Mine is not anxiety,
But it's something. Yeah.
it's something. And it's very important that we all understand that the difference of between recognizing a struggle and when we do really take ownership of something. Because when we take ownership of something, we're claiming it.
Yeah.
We're making it, like you said, part of our identity.
We're justifying our actions.
We're giving
because of it, and saying, oh, it's because I have this.
Exactly.
And so it should like automatically justify why you reacted that way.
Exactly. And that's not, and that's what we want to kind of let everybody know, because, you know, we see this in so many different areas of people that struggle with so many different things, and their excuse is that, oh, it's that I have this. So, you know, let it be. Like, don't come at me because of this. But when we learn and we truly understand, you know, that thorn that's within us, it's not who we are. It's just, it's there, but it doesn't define us.
It's so an exterior thing. So it's an exterior thing. A thorn is something that is not part of the human body.
Exactly.
Like, think of that. Like, it's not who God created you to be. It's an exterior thing that got stuck and is pinching at you.
Exactly.
But you can struggle.
But it's not part of you.
But it's not a part of you. It's not who God created you to be. So don't let it identify you. Like,
don't let it go into you to the point that you are not letting it.
Yeah.
You're making it part of your body.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you have to kind of like understand that it's not who God created you to be. Because the moment you start identifying, you start limiting yourself.
Definitely.
And you start allowing that. So like, you know, oh, I have social anxiety, so therefore I don't socialize. But you don't know, maybe that struggle of social anxiety, the enemy, because it says it's a messenger of Satan to torment you. Maybe the enemy doesn't want you to socialize because you have a gift.
Exactly. Yeah.
That can be a beneficial in a social, like in a social atmosphere, but it doesn't allow you. I've noticed that when I struggle with it socially, I'm like, why am I struggling with something socially? Is it somebody that needs to hear something that I have to say?
Wow.
And right now I'm allowing anxiety to paralyze me from speaking to somebody.
Wow. That's very powerful.
So like, you have to understand that. So when you allow anxiety or any thorn that you have identify you, you're limiting what God can do for you, like with you and through you.
Exactly. It's with you. Because that's such a key point right there that you said, you know, God wants to do life with you.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, we're, okay, I can do this. I can figure this out.
Yeah.
And the moment that we're not recognizing that key point of, you know, doing life with God, it's the moment that that thorn becomes part of our identity. Because as long as we're doing life with God, we know that that thorn is there, but God is giving us the strength to pull through.
Yeah. So like how I wrote, it's supposed to be something that draws us back to Jesus and our pursuit of him.
Exactly.
Because like what Paul said, it's like I can boast and I can say all of these things because, you know, God has used me to do all of these things, but I won't and I can't because I know I had this struggle.
True.
And I know I had this struggle. And if because of this struggle that I have, I know that I wouldn't be able to do those things if it weren't for him.
Oof. Wow. That's hallelujah to that one.
Yeah.
Because that's something that we all like really don't realize.
Because like if you didn't have the thorn, you wouldn't like, so let's say his thorn, and I go back to like the social one, right? The social anxiety. Because he had to socialize a lot. He wrote letters to the different churches. Let's say his thorn was social anxiety, right? And he's saying, I have this. I wish I didn't have it. I've asked for it to be removed. But he hasn't removed it. Because I need to depend on him to do the work.
Yeah.
So like, let's say you have social anxiety, all right? But God is telling you, you need to do this. You need to go and speak here. Or you need to lead this group. Or you need to do like whatever it is socially. And you're like, God,
nope,
you know I have this anxiety.
Why would you make me do this?
But it's in our weakness that then we're strong. It says, for when I am weak, then I am strong. I will boast all the more about my weakness so that his power can manifest through me.
Exactly.
Like we have to shift our perspective.
Yeah.
Because who has greater power, your anxiety or God?
Wow.
You have an overload of thoughts and like fears going into your mind. What is bigger, the fear or your God?
Yep.
What are you giving power? Are you just going to continue to be a fearful person? Or are you going to let God come in
and do the work? Wow. Yeah. I listen to you and I'm like listening to you right now. And like I said, like for me, it's amazing because I can honestly say that in all this journey of this specific topic of anxiety, you know, like I said, my husband is one who struggles and my son as well. And that's something that I've emphasized so much with my son. And just recently we had a situation where he was talking to me about a classmate that he has in school, and you know that he's like a friend, you know, an acquaintance, but he was like, yeah, I struggle with this kid, mom, like he's too loud, he's too hyper, and I can't deal with this. And I was like, so I was like, explain, like, what do you mean he's too loud? He's like, yeah, like he's always very hyper and he's always like can't stay still, and the kid tells me he has ADHD. So when he tells me this, like I look back at him and I look at him and I'm like, I call him my nene. I go, nene, you are aware that you as well struggle with ADHD, right? So he kind of looked at me and he kind of like had like a moment of like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, obviously, because for me in my journey with my son, I've been very cautious of how I word things with him, because I know that words have power. And I've noticed that he's the type of person, and obviously what he handles, that if I'm not careful on how I say things, it's very easy for him at times to kind of take ownership of that. So my words with him have to be very careful. So when we did realize, like, we did tell him, but we haven't told him every day, you know, remember, it's because of this. Remember, you do this because of that. No, you know, we told him at one point, but we focused more on the work that needed to be done.
Yeah.
And
helping him
and helping him identify when he was feeling anxiety, when he was feeling sad, when he was feeling an overload of emotions, when he was going what we call a shutdown mode, which his brain kind of like just, he stops talking, he stops moving, he doesn't say anything, he kind of like freezes like a robot.
Down, literally.
It literally freezes like a robot. And we've learned to kind of identify all those things. And the word has always been struggle.
Yeah.
I've never told him, you have this, or this is who you are. I've always told him, you struggle with this. Because I've noticed that before, and I had to ask God for forgiveness for that at one moment, because, you know, before we understood what he was struggling with, you know, like, we're like, oh my God, he's just so lazy. And he had heard us say that. And we didn't say it to him, but he heard us say it.
Yeah.
And one day he came at us. What do you expect, Mom? You say that I'm a lazy kid.
Ooh.
So for me and for my husband, it was like, wait, no, we can't do that. Like, we can't say that around him, because he really takes, you know, we don't want him to own those words, you know?
Yeah.
And with all of this, we've come to tell him, like, you know, you struggle. And the day that he told me about his friends, you know, I kind of reminded him, like, hey, FYI.
Yeah, you told him, like, you know, this is something you
struggle with this too. So he kind of got caught off guard, because I guess he kind of had put it down, like, the back burner. And I was like, remember a few years ago, Nene, that you were going through this and you were having these outbursts at school and you were having these really bad, like, situations in school, and it was all due to the process and what you were dealing with. You know, you didn't like when people looked at you and kind of saw you in those moments, right? So, you know, so then he right away tells me, Mom, maybe this kid hasn't gotten therapy. I should talk to him. Maybe he should go to therapy, because therapy helped me a lot. And obviously, Mom, you know,
it helped him empathize.
And
have compassion over his friend.
And then in that moment when he realized that and it clicked, he was like, oh, okay, Mom, like, now I get it. So my son, for me, like, God bless his soul, he is that one kid that when you talk to him and you sit him down and you speak with him, he's really listening.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might think, oh, he's not. No, he's really listening. And sometimes I always tell my husband, we have to be careful, because sometimes we think, oh, that he's over there, but he's listening. So we're very cautious.
He reminds me so much of myself.
Yeah. You were always eavesdropping on everybody's conversation.
Not intentionally. I heard a lot of things.
So for me right now, like, it's very important, like how Priscilla was just explaining right now. You have to be very careful on how you word the things that are your thorns.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you will take ownership of them and you will limit yourself.
You're going to welcome them into your house, and they're going to sit at your table, and they're
going to stop you from doing all the amazing things that God has for you to do. Like, for example, we could go back and kind of talk about like this situation with her and I, like starting what we're starting right now.
Yeah.
You know, but we can honestly sit here and say, you know what, God, like, we're not going to allow this thorn that continues to kind of stab at us, stop us from what we know that you called me to do, who you called me to be, and who I need to be, because you're the one who gives me the strength. You're the one who's going to help me through this. And I think that's a key point, is remembering that we do this not alone. We do this with God.
I mean, you can choose to do it alone, but it's going to overcome you. But remember, I have come to overcome the world. Jesus quote. So to kind of wrap this up, I want to bring to your guys' mind a character in scripture. that is, because when we were prepping for this, I asked God, I was like, okay, God, like, you left this Bible and you left the word, and you also used so many stories about different people that were imperfect, but you used them to do great and mighty things. Who in this Bible struggled with anxiety? And I started like looking into it, and a lot of people had certain like moments of anxiety. But the one that stood out to me the most was King David. And I was like, oh, that's something that he struggled with. And I remember writing one time in my journal, I was like, oh, the Psalms are so emotional. Like, if you ever read,
so much emotion in there.
There's so much emotion, and it's like happy emotion, sad emotion, angry emotion, happy emotion, like praise, lament. Like, there's so many different types of emotions.
I think there's a lot of worship that also comes out of Psalms.
Yeah, so because it's a very emotional like book of the Bible. And one of the emotions that he constantly brings up is anxiety. And so I was like, oh, David suffered, like, he struggled with anxiety. That was something that he felt. And I was like, but that's not who we know him for. We don't know him as an anxious David.
No, we don't.
We know him as King David who defeated Goliath, who was brave and courageous and stood up against the giant with, 5 stones and a I forgot what it's called, but whatever. With the 5 stones.
The 5 stones, a little gadget that.
Still a little gadget. Yeah, I can't remember
I don't remember the name.
The slingshot. So we know him as that. We know him, as the one that wrote the Psalms. We know him as a man after God's own heart.
Yep.
We don't know him as anxious David. And that's because he chose to struggle with anxiety, but not let it to be his identity. He would feel his anxiety, but he would bring it at the feet of God and say, hey, God, I'm feeling this. Help me.
And it's right there where you said, help me. Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of us pray, take it from me.
Yeah, like how Paul did. Exactly. 3 times I asked him to remove it and take it away. But it's not that he's going to remove it. It's, God, help me overcome it. Help me face it.
Exactly.
Help me surpass it right now. So like one of the Psalms that I wrote here, it says, search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way of everlasting life. Psalms 139:23, verses 23 and 24. So I'm like, he's like, God, like, look into me. Point out to me where I'm dealing with anxiety. What's triggering it? What's causing it? And then show me the way to go. And that's why we don't know David for that. For what the thorn in his flesh.
We know him for all the other things.
Because he allowed God to, regardless of the thorn that he had, allowed God to use him. And that's why we know him as a king. We know him as a man after God's own heart. We know him as a brave and courageous person. We know him as a person of faith, because in Hebrews 11, it goes on to say he was a great example of the faith. Imagine if all of these great examples of the faith allowed their thorn be their identity. Moses, their stutter. Sarah, her barrenness.
Exactly.
David, his anxiety. Gideon, his position.
Everybody. Like, there's so many.
If they would have allowed that thorn to be who they were
and limit them,
would they have accomplished what they did for the glory of God? No. And even because they had it, God still chose them. So even if you're struggling with anxiety, does not mean that God can't use you in exactly what you're struggling with.
Exactly. Yeah. That's such an amazing thing right there to say that, like, to actually key point that, because a lot of us think of us and see, oh, who am I? Yeah. To come, for example, in a person like, for example, you, Prissy, that for you, that you struggle with anxiety. Who am I here to come and speak to people about anxiety.
Exactly.
Like, you can sit here and battle in your anxiety. Who am I to tell people do this, or like, you know, when I myself struggle with this every day? See, the difference is right there. We go back to that word. The fact that you have learned to say, you know, I struggle. You don't identify yourself as I have anxiety. You say you struggle with it, gives you the ability to say, you know what? I'm here, and let me talk to those who need to hear this, because they're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not the only one feeling it.
Yeah.
And you're not the only one struggling through it. But here's somebody,
doesn't have to be,
and it doesn't have to be
your identity.
Exactly. And here I am telling you that I go through this. I felt this. It's like right now what you're saying about David, like, many people have probably read the stories, but didn't really know this side of David.
Yeah.
And would have never known this. But when you go and read the scripture, you realize he did struggle with this.
Yeah.
He did have this, but it didn't stop him. It didn't take away everything else that he did. So this is the part where we're coming. And I think this is the most important key mark that we're trying to emphasize today is struggle is very different than taking ownership.
Yeah. Claiming ownership of anxiety is allowing it to have a hold of you. But confessing the struggle is saying, I know it's there, but I will overcome it, and it will not be my identity.
Yeah. Wow.
So my friends, identify it, say it's there.
It's there.
The thorn is there. I struggle with it, but I will not let it be my identity. I will not claim ownership of it, because it does not belong to me. It's there for me to remember that I need God.
Him above.
I need to depend on his strength. When the anxious thoughts come, I need to look up towards Jesus.
Yeah, and like right now, you just said that, and something came in right now, and it's like, how amazing would it have been that God could have made this world in a point, and when he designed us, he could have made everything perfect. And if he would have made perfect,
he did make everything perfect, but no, sin,
in the sense of like, if we didn't have these thorns, how many of us would truly seek him?
Nobody.
Exactly, because we wouldn't have the need.
Yeah.
So the thorns are there for us to remind us that
we need him,
that he's there, and that we need him. So for all of you listening, you know, just remember that, guys. Like, you know, God didn't make these thorns to make you suffer, to say, why is my life so hard? Why do I have this? Like, why did he give me this? He did this with you, and you have these thorns is because he wants to remind you, hey, I'm here. Just let me know if you want me to help you, and I can help you through this.
You need him. It's a reminder that we need him. So our friends, we hope that
you enjoyed.
We're going to have another episode where we talk about how to actually engage in the struggle and fight it and try to overcome it, because anxiety is one of the mental health conditions that you can actually overcome.
Exactly, yes.
So stay tuned and be blessed.
And have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for spending time with us here at Lighthouse Collective. We hope today's conversation brought a little light to your day and encouraged you to keep moving forward no matter where you are in your journey. Remember, you're never alone. There's always hope, always peace, and always a light to guide you. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share with someone who might need a little encouragement. Until next time, stay anchored in hope and keep shining your light.